This is Independence Amplified Maryland, your source for news, information, talk, and conversation about disability, about people with disabilities, the services that we need, and the plans that we have for the future in advocacy and action. I want to thank you all for coming today and remind you that at the end of this meeting, if you would like to make an announcement about your particular service organization or meeting that's coming up or activity, we'll have an opportunity for that. In the meantime, as you fill out your forms, please think about us as an opportunity, if you have some funds that you're able to give to keep these programs alive. We think that this is an important resource for people with disabilities. It's not free, but we appreciate everything you can do to maybe give us any funding that you can spare. I want to thank you for that. These programs are recorded. So anything you say can and will be used against, could possibly be used they will be broadcast on YouTube. So, and we have live captioning available as well, but you will, this is being engaged in for the record. So please note that before you speak and take cognizance of the fact that you're being recorded. We want to thank everyone who is here today, and we're going to get right to today's program. We have Joe Awkward and Deanna Ballard. They're going to talk to us about Paralympics and the history and current activities related to Paralympics and what's going on. And without any more incoherent babbling, I'm going to turn it over to Joe Awkward for his presentation. Joe Awkward and Deanna Ballard, welcome to you all both.
Great. Well, thank you, Mike, and thank you, everyone. It's going to be a pleasure to talk to you guys today about the Paralympics. Many of you probably had an opportunity to watch our Olympics that just completed last weekend. I'm going to just start with just some of the basic details about the Paralympics. Being a crowd that knows a lot about folks with disabilities, a lot of you might be aware of this, but I'll just go over a couple basics and then we'll kind of take it from there. First of all, my name is Joe Awkward. I'm a disability advocate. I work for the Freedom Center, and it'll be a pleasure to talk to you today about our Paralympics. So the Paralympics is the third largest event worldwide for athletes. And it's for the physically challenged athletes of the world. Many call it the ultimate inclusive event because you're competing against others in your own disability. I had the honor of representing the United States back in 2004 in track and field. And what's really awesome about it is I'm actually a blind gentleman. I competed against other blind athletes, and whoever won the race was whoever was the fastest, which is great. It's very similar here. What we're going to talk to you today is about. Okay. What we're going to talk to you today is about the Paralympics, and my co-presenter, Deanna Ballard, actually has personally worked with some of these athletes. So with that, I'm just going to start with the first slide there, Heather. Just kind of an intro, just letting you know that Joe Awkward was in 2004 Athens game. It was really a wonderful thrill. What a lot of you may or may not know is these Paralympians, and there's 240 of them, they're all staying in the Olympic Village, just where the Olympians stayed. Many of them have been training for the last couple months with their own teams, getting ready. There's actually 22 sports. Heather, if you could go to slide number 2. And this is just a couple fun facts about the Paralympics. There's 41 of the states have at least one athlete in Washington, D.C. I'm going to briefly touch on, we have 6 Marylanders that are on the Paralympic team. And there's 22 different sports, many of the same sports that you would see in the regular Olympic Games. Some of the more common sports are track and field, swimming, wheelchair basketball. Some of you blind individuals might be familiar with goalball. That's a a big sport here for the United States. This year, being in Japan, the host country gets to add events, and they added Taekwondo and badminton. So one of the things that's pretty cool about being from Maryland is the athletes that have the most medals going into this Paralympics are both from Maryland. One is Tatyana Mcfadden and Jessica Long. You'll be hearing a little more about Jessica in a little bit with our second presenter. But as far as the games go, it's the opportunity for others to exhibit their best spirit right there within the spirit of the Paralympics. It's been going on since 1964. Well over 100 countries participate. There's about 4,400 athletes that'll be there in Tokyo. So I'm going to just briefly touch for the next 6 slides. We do have 6 Marylanders. And Heather, if you could go to slide number 3. These next 3 slides will be, we have 3 athletes that are swimmers. And Heather, if I've got this right, is this Daniel Ranchik, I believe? Yeah. So I believe this is Daniel Ranchik. He's from Mount Airy. He's one of our swimmers on the Paralympic team. So I was trying to do the where these athletes, which SIL they be with now. We have 2 from Mount Airy. So that could be a couple of different SILs because Mount Airy is one of those towns that's right on the border of, I think it's 4 counties. So
sorry, Joe, I was trying to unmute myself. So the slide that I have up now is Daniel Romanchuk.
Yes, thank you.
From Perfect. Mount Airy, and it says his sport is track and field.
Correct. I apologize. You're right. Daniel is, and you're correct. He's the first 2 here are track and field. Thank you, Heather. That's perfect.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks so again, for your patience.
Sure, of course. So I was mentioning he's from Mount Airy. It's interesting. We have 2 athletes from Mount Airy. I couldn't quite tell which SIL they're with, but it could be a couple. It could be our SIL with Frederick. It could be Independence Now. It could actually be 1 or 2 others. But so that's Daniel Manchek. He's in track and field. The second athlete we're going to mention here, and some of you may know her. Her name is Tatyana Mcfadden. She has been competing. This will be her 6th Paralympics. She's been competing since 2000. Really a good. She's from Baltimore. I actually got a chance to compete with her in Athens. Really, really talented. One of the best wheelchair racers out there in the world. Really. She's from Russia originally and moved here and was a highly competed in able-bodied sports all through high school and has just been really a star in the whole Paralympics for many, many years. So that's Tatyana Mcfadden from Baltimore. Okay, Heather, we can go to slide number 5. And now we're going to talk about our swimmers.
Okay, and Jessica, Jessica Long.
Right. So you're going to hear quite a bit more about Jessica in a little bit, but just to touch on Jessica, this is her 5th Paralympics. She started back in 2004, highly decorated. You'll probably see her on some of the marketing slides that'll be coming out for the Paralympics. Really just a top class young lady. Again, I'm going to let my co-presenter, she's worked with her directly. So at this time, I'll just say Jessica Long from Baltimore. And then I'll move on to the other 2 swimmers. Okay, Heather, if we can go to the next slide.
Yep, we got Lawrence Sapp.
Right. And this
Waldorf.
Yes. So this is Lawrence Sapp. He's a young man. He only 20. So he's from Waldorf. Now I was trying to think, and this I might have to reach out to my other SILs here for Waldorf. Which SIL would that be for?
Southern Maryland.
Southern Maryland's. So I'm not sure if they're online, but
yeah, they are. I see a few of them nodding.
There we go. So
Southern Maryland SILs all
representing.
So,
got Lawrence from Waldorf. And then we have one more athlete who's also a swimmer. And if
Zachary.
Right.
From
Zachary.
another Mount Airy.
He's also from Mount Airy. So it's interesting. 2 from Mount Airy, 2 from Baltimore, and we have Waldorf. So Zachary is another swimmer. And we'll go to our next slide. And this is a gentleman who's part of the wheelchair basketball team. And
Trayvon, Jennifer.
Trayvon Jennifer, yes. And he's from Huntingtown. Huntingtown is down, it might be Southern Maryland also. It's going down towards the bridge. I want to say I think that's Charles County, but I'm not 100% sure. But so kind of interesting with Trayvon, the men's wheelchair basketball team is the current world champion right now. So they'll be defending their title. So he's part of that 12-man men's team, and there's also a 12-man women's team. So there'll be somebody exciting to watch out for during the the games themselves. The last slide I'll talk about is every Paralympics, there's more and more coverage. So what's pretty exciting, if you can go to the ninth and last slide, Heather.
Okay.
So very similar to the Olympics that many of you probably got a chance to watch. NBC also has the contract for the Paralympics. So there will be about 1,200 hours of coverage. But what's really cool about it is they are going to have prime time covering the opening ceremonies, which is going to be a week from tomorrow, Tuesday, the 24th of August. And the closing ceremonies will be that Labor Day weekend, September 5th, I believe. And they're going to have a coverage each day. They're going to do kind of highlights of the events. And for any of those that get Peacock, it'll be on Peacock also. So there'll be lots of ways to see the Paralympics. So it's exciting. I think what I was talking earlier, and what I think a lot of us, I think, should be really proud of is these Paralympians really are a great example of how through sports and disabilities, you really can put a positive foot out there and show to your fellow Americans, Marylanders, and folks in the world. And it really is just a wonderful, positive experience. And I encourage all of you to support the team. Again, it'll be starting in another week, so we've got some time for that. Maryland does a good job. We have some of the most Paralympians are from the state of California, which is understandable being a large state. And we have 6 from Maryland. So one of the goals we might have for the next time around is maybe if we can get up to 10 athletes possibly. What I would just say before we go to the second presentation is, and we will have question and answers here at the end also, but I would encourage all of you, whether or not you aspire to be a Paralympian or it's very possible one of your consumers, could be, there's many different sports. Like I said, there's 22 different sports, and there's a Winter Paralympics also. And just the idea of competing in sports or just having fun with it, it doesn't have to be the Paralympics. But I've noticed in my career that when I do participate in sports at any level, it's a really great way to coordinate and link in with others and network. So I would encourage all of us to go through with that, consider that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my co-presenter, Deanna Ballard. And Deanna?
Hi.
Oh, right.
Hello. Thank you, Joe.
Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
So I'm Deanna. I currently work at UnderArmor's headquarters over in Locust Point. I'm one of the trainers there. So I'm a CSCS, so strength and conditioning, but I also specialize in adapted fitness. So I work with a lot of individuals with disabilities or post-rehab, things like that. And through that, I ended up getting to work with some Paralympic athletes who are in Tokyo actually right now. I think they got there yesterday or the day before. And they're awesome. They're a lot of fun.
Mhm.
I have a little, Joe, should I do the share screen?
Sure, if
Can
you're
I
able to do that, that would be great. Yes.
Let's see. Zoom is not my forte. Let's see here.
Gotcha.
Oh, there we go. Share the screen. All right. Here we are. Here's me. All right. So here's myself again. A little bit about me. What I said. I'm Deanna. I work for UnderArmor Performance Center. Bachelor's of Exercise Science from Towson. Certified through the National Strength and Conditioning Association and the Adaptive Training Academies, Adaptive and Inclusive Training Certification. So Jessica Wong, who Joe spoke about briefly before, is born and bred from Baltimore. This is her. She has been to her 4th Paralympic Games. She's had 23 medals, 13 of which are golds, 52 medals in a world championship stage, so not including Paralympic medals. 35 of those were gold. She's won 3 SB awards. She is a double below the knee amputee. Been that way since she was 2 years old, I believe, maybe a little bit less. She was born with a condition called fibular hemimelia. So she needed an amputation to even have a chance at walking, and she did. So she falls into an S8, SB7, and SM8 category. So for the Paralympics, how it works, because everyone has different disabilities, everyone's disabilities, I'm sure, as you guys understand, affect them differently. So there's a panel of experts, I suppose you could call them, who decide a classification system and then individually go through all 240 athletes and classify them. So that way they are competing with others with a similar level of function to make it as fair as possible. Joe, did I explain that better? You might be able to explain that better than I did.
No, just right. No, just right. You compared.
All right, cool. So she swims, you know anything about swimming, 100 and 400 meter freestyle. She swims backstroke, breaststroke, butterfly, and 200 individual medley. So 50 meters. So depending upon the pool, short pool is down and back of each of them or just down one way. Next, who I've also had the pleasure of working with is Mackenzie Cohen. She is a tiny little ball of sunshine. She is not actually from Maryland. She is from Georgia. She graduated from Loyola University here and stayed, worked at Loyola, applied to law school, and actually recently got into Rutgers, which is pretty exciting. So this is her 3rd Paralympic Games. She's been to 5 world championships. She's got, 9 gold medals between the 2 of them, holds a few world records. So she has what is called osteogenesis imperfecta. So she is a very, very brittle bone disease. So if she lifts more than about 30 pounds or so, her bones will just break. I've seen her break one. I think she's broken over 65 bones. I think was her last count. Even just like walking and stumbling on, I think it was like a bench in the weight room. I've seen her break a bone from doing that. So something to consider when we were working together is how to get her stronger without putting a whole lot of weight on her. Which we found some ways around, and it ended up working out really nicely. She also has recently published a book, I think in the last couple weeks. It was just made available. It's called Making Waves. Then next is Colleen Young. You can see a little Mackenzie in the background there. So this is her 3rd Paralympic Games. She's also not from Maryland. She's from Missouri. She went to college up in Fairfield, in Connecticut. She is close friends with Mackenzie, so she was down here training for a summer. So I had the opportunity to train her as well. So this will be her third Paralympics. She swims primarily breaststroke, and she holds records both for American breaststroke and for the Pan American Games. She holds the 100-meter breaststroke record as well. She swims in an S13, SB13, and SM13. So she has albinism. Primarily affects her vision. She can see a fair amount, but certainly not, it's not able to be corrected, anything like that. So again, kind of considerations from going from, I didn't really talk about it with Jessica, we'll go back here. So things that I would consider when working with her are going to be different than things that I would consider working with Mackenzie or working with Colleen, because even though, yes, they are all swimmers, they all have like vastly different needs. So they all need, you know, total body strengthening. They all have their specific strokes they work on, and we work on strengthening within those strokes and like those ranges of movement, or range of motion. But so with Jessica, a lot of things that we work on, and I have a picture of her down here, is some balance. Balancing on those prosthetics can be difficult, because she has, you know, can't feel her feet feeling the ground. So kind of finding a way to get her to squat nice and low and get the correct things engaged was a challenge, and we did it. She works hard. She, you know, all of them are fantastic. They will try anything I throw at them. We've tried all sorts of fun, funky variations of things to get them to work, and it was a lot of fun. I was super lucky last winter. They were on there was a team camp out at the Colorado Springs Training Center. I got to go out there with them and do the weight training for them for a few days, which was awesome. I have a couple more pictures here. So it's us, as myself, Mackenzie, and Jessica at a couple different locations within the Olympic Training Center in Colorado. Here is Jessica doing a couple different lifts. You can see her sport legs here that she has on. Just doing a couple different exercises at the UnderArmor facility with me. That was, hey, there I am. So that was my presentation. I can answer whatever questions you guys might have about it, about training them, or how that translates to people who, you know, maybe aren't world record holder swimmers, because a lot of us are not. I'm not. I work with a fair number of individuals who are not athletes, but are still have varying disabilities. I see you when giggling and with giant smile. Hello, Kara. It's a lot of fun. It's awesome. It's a similar thought processes. I get to take what I've learned, you know, getting the able-bodied, the regular certifications, and really change them around and put those things to work for people who need it as well, and have to approach it a little bit differently. So it's kind of what I do.
All right.
Okay, let's see what kind of questions we got out there. I'll start off with one that that will demonstrate my ignorance. There was a couple of weeks ago, there was some controversy about a blind gal who wanted to participate in the Paralympics.
Right.
But it was determined that the assistant she was requiring was not the right kind, not appropriate. So can you explain for us lay people what happened, and do you know?
Sure.
Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Do you want me to address it, or we can both? Okay.
Yeah, go right ahead. I think I know what he's talking about. I
Yeah.
want to make sure.
So yes. So her name is Becca Myers. She is a deafblind swimmer from Maryland. Yes, there was a fair amount of media coverage on that. I would say kind of a neutral on this. So for athletes, many of them do benefit from, based on their disability. For instance, myself being a blind runner, there would be a guide runner assigned. In Becca's case, and very similar to the Olympics, the US Paralympic Committee was extremely limited on how many additional supportive individuals could come with them. What happened was Becca, who had earned a slot on the team as a swimmer, also she had requested as a personal assistant her mother, basically Maria, and from what I can tell, the challenge that the Paralympic Committee had is they offered they did have someone set up that was going to be sharing that time, and I guess in Becca's case, she felt the only way she could compete is if she had the one, and specifically her mother. So that's kind of what I know about it. There are, you know, like any issue, there are two sides to it. There was some coverage about it. I do know I contacted Paralympics, and they, you know, were very hopeful that Becca would compete, but she did decide right before the 4th that she wanted to withdraw from the games. But yeah, does that kind of address that, Mike? Or
Yeah, I think that's kind of the understanding I had of it. That she wanted a specific person to be her assistant, and they offered her somebody that she hadn't worked with before. Is that essentially it?
So I honestly don't know if she hadn't worked with her before,
Okay.
but I don't know. But she did have a very specific request, and unfortunately they weren't able to come to a, you know, full-fledged agreement on it. Again, I do know this much: it's just like the Olympics, they're very limited to who can come with, you know, family and friends, and I don't know if that played into it, but unfortunately, you know, the Paralympics, she was already on the team, and she did decide, which is unfortunate because it's a tremendous opportunity. But, you know, hopeful, and who knows, maybe in the future. I know she does live in Maryland, so you know, hopefully, future she'll continue, you know, competing. Yes.
Somebody writes into the chat and says that their understanding was that they were offering one PCA for 34 people. Do you know about that, or do you know, Deanna, do you have any comments about all this?
So that is kind of outside of how much I know about the situation. So I don't know her personally. I don't know a whole lot more than what Joe talked about her situation. I know that just based on the limitations with COVID, they're not able to provide what, the way I understood it, sounded like a sufficient number of staff to have everyone, or, you know, significant staffing for people.
Yeah, I think part of that 34 number, I think that might be the total number of swimmers competing. Many of those swimmers don't necessarily require the assistance of a PCA, but so I don't know if it was at 34-1, but unfortunately they couldn't do a 1-for-1, which and I can appreciate that, but yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. It's a good question.
That was my question. Just
it's a good question.
Things off. What else?
Sure.
I have a question. This is Chiffon. Can you tell me the difference between the Paralympics and the Special Olympics?
Yes, that's a great question. Sure. So the term that they would use, the Paralympians, they referred to that as for the physically challenged athletes of the world. And for the Special Olympics, the term that's used is for the mentally challenged athletes of the world. And so that's the terminology that's used. The Special Olympics, you know, has gotten, you know, wonderful support for all these decades, you know, from the Kennedy and the Shriver family. But so that is the difference. One is for physically challenged athletes, and one is for what they will call mentally challenged athletes of the world.
So just as a question.
Yes.
Because it looks to me like if I base it on my local TV and sort of what I see every year, it looks to me like the Special Olympics must be outfunded, it must outfund the Paralympics by about $1 billion to 1, because the Special Olympics get massive amounts of attention. I know in the last several years, I've certainly seen a lot more about the Paralympics and a lot more about what are really some incredibly impressive athletes.
Yes. Yes.
And they are a nonprofit. Yes, the Special Olympics are a nonprofit, as well as the Paralympics. But do you guys know anything about the sort of parallel funding no, maybe the right word is comparable funding for the two organizations?
So I can address part of that if you want. So you are correct. Ever since the 80s and 90s, the Special Olympics, which was started in the early 1960s by President Kennedy's family, Sergeant Shriver, they do benefit from a high amount of funding, and they always have, and they get a lot of positive publicity to their credit. I will tell you one thing that did happen within the last 8 years, which was a really good thing for the Paralympics. Now it's called the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee. They used to be two separate and distinct. So what's happened now, Mike, and this will help with their funding, all the athletes that compete are picked within their own sports. So for instance, track and field athletes, they go through USA Track and Field, whereas before it used to be by their skill set, like US Association of Blind Athletes. Right. The other thing that's new this year is the US Olympic Paralympic Committee does provide certain dollar value for every medal that's earned for gold, silver, and bronze. And this year, for the first time ever, the Paralympians will get exactly the same amount of money that the Olympians are for gold, silver, and bronze. So you are correct. There, it is that. It's getting better. That's where this coverage, TV coverage will help, and just the exposure of the athletes. But you're right. It's a great point, because the money and the exposure does help for sure. So they are. Yeah.
Well, and my impression of the Special Olympics too is that it's a lot of kids as well, and that I don't care what anybody says, kids sell. I mean, kids.
Good point.
Kids,
Yeah.
Kids, and of course you have TV stations that are out doing the annual plunge and so forth. I mean, it's it tends to pull a lot of heartstrings, and for whatever reason, more than one might pull heartstrings for people who may be paralyzed from the waist down or whatever. So
yeah, it's a fair comment. And that's one of the things, I guess one of the goals that Deanna and I have is, because I really think for many Americans, if they hear about the amazing things that some of these athletes are doing who happen to have a disability, you're right, because some of it, they really have kind of raised their game in terms of marketing and things like that. So yes.
Other questions, folks out there? I've been dominating all the questions here. I got more. Anybody else? Questions for these folks? All right, Deanna, you told us where you work, but tell us your story. How did you get involved in sports, and how did you get involved with UnderArmor?
So UnderArmor happened more recently, actually. So I've been an athlete my whole life. Played soccer for Towson. Was working with a Towson here in Maryland. I guess we're all in Maryland. Okay. Was working with a physical therapy clinic. Met actually people that are on here now who got me connected with you guys to do this today. And that was kind of my introduction to adapted fitness. And I was immediately drawn to it. I was like, this is awesome. It's cool. It's a lot more fun than working with able-bodied people. They're quite dull, honestly. And so Jessica used to see one of those therapists that I used to work with, a physical therapist that I used to work with. He assigned me to her to help finish with one of her sessions one day. I was super nervous. She ended up liking me and said, "You're my strength coach now." I said, "Okay." And from there,
folks,
question just came in on the chat. It said from Sammy. Sammy asks, how does the committee decide how folks with multiple disabilities compete?
So that's a great question. So the way that happens, Sammy, is you can compete in any disability category that you would like to. And this does happen from time to time. Usually what will happen is, say, for instance, we have an athlete who vision impaired, and maybe they've similar to Jessica, maybe they're above the knee amputee. What'll happen is you do get classified, and typically you have the ability to try to compete in either one. Usually one will be stronger than the other, but they do have standards, and you would have to compete against those in that standard. For instance, in vision, there's actually 3 different levels of vision. One is what they call the 11s, which would be virtually no sight. 12s, which would be some sight, but not enough to, you could have a guide. In 13, it was the young lady that's working with Deanna. You have more sight, but still legally blind under 20 degrees. But the long answer, but basically, Sammy, you would work within the USOPC, and they would kind of help you with your classifications. So does that answer the question, Sammy?
Sammy is indicating yes.
Okay, great.
Okay, so how does someone get involved with para competitions if they want to do sports on more than just a recreational level from para?
Great. Yeah, that's a great question. So what happens now is they go through their national governing groups. So if there's a specific sport that you're playing, a lot of times they go through those sports. I do know, and I can provide these links also, what typically a lot of the groups, for instance, for vision impaired, we have a group called United States Association of Blind Athletes. Some of the other disability groups also, they're called national governing bodies. They also participate. So typically that's how it will start. I know for me, that's how it started. So you start through a national governing body. So it's dependent upon which disability you would flow from, and then it goes from there. And then the headquarters for the Olympic and Paralympic training committees are in Colorado Springs. And there's a way, if you go on their website, they can assist you from there also. It's called Paralympics.org. And if anybody would like information, I'll be happy to follow up, because that is part of it, finding, sinking in with the organizations. The good news is a lot of these athletes now are on college and high school teams, which is an ideal way of them getting good, skills in high level competition. But I'll be happy to follow up with those links later also. Did you have anything wanted to add, Deanna?
Not really. So like once you get involved on the ground floor there with your national governing body,
Right.
There's other levels of competitive para sports. So I know, for example, Maryland has a wheelchair rugby team called Maryland Mayhem. That they don't go to the games. They might have an athlete, or I guess they don't have one this year that's going, but they compete locally, and if you do well enough from there, you can kind of move up from there.
Exactly. That's exactly how it works. And particularly with sports, rugby is a great example. They have sled hockey, there's soccer. A lot of states have a team, and they compete within the states. And usually they pick the national team from some of the best athletes from the different teams. But thank you.
Another question in the chat from Abiola. Who or what office handles all the reasonable accommodation requests from all of the Paralympians, and how large or well-staffed is that office?
That's a great question, Aviola. I'll be honest, I don't know how well staffed it is. I do know that everything does come through the United States Olympic Paralympic Committee, which is in Colorado Springs. I do know in my experiences with them, I've talked with them with their marketing communications. When you say reasonable accommodations, most of that you go directly through your coaches in terms of for reasonable accommodations. So that's the part I'm familiar with. I'd be happy to research that a little further though, because I don't know how large their staff is. I know they take every opportunity they can to try to, best support the accommodations for every athlete. And there is an ombudsman. I do know of that also, but it does flow through that United States Olympic Paralympic committees.
All right. Well, it looks like that's the last of the questions in the chat, I think,
Okay.
unless.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Abiola, so sorry, I didn't see your question up top. Yep, I think that's all of the questions. Does anyone else have anything to add? No?
All right.
Well, wonderful. So thank you so much, Deanna and Joe, for putting together this presentation and helping us understand more about the world of Paralympics. It's definitely a very exciting time with everything that's been happening with that. And it was really good to get some further background knowledge and information about it.
Great. Well, you're most welcome, and thanks for giving us the opportunity today. And I encourage all of you to consider checking out the Paralympics as they come up later in the month.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So does anyone have any community announcements?
Tomorrow, oops, yes, I have one.
Okay.
So tomorrow, Independence Now is hosting an online event on accessible resources available at the libraries. And we have, of course, it's going to be from the counties we serve, Prince George's County and Montgomery County, but we also have the Maryland State Library for the blind and deaf. And so it is going to be a really, really cool event where, even though for some of us nerds who really like visiting the libraries, for those persons who also just need other supports, other resources, maybe figuring out how to borrow a book from the library or borrow equipment from the library, assistive technology, then tomorrow afternoon at 12 o'clock, I believe, we're going to be hosting an event on that online. And I don't know if I'm doing this on my phone. I don't know if I can drop the link to the event, but if you're interested, do visit Independence Now's website at www.innow.org. Go to the events page and look up the event for the 17th of August. That's tomorrow.
Thank
I have
you,
one.
Abiola. Oh, yes, Brittany.
Hi, this is Brittany with ARI. Miss Wheelchair Maryland and Miss Wheelchair DC organization has a fundraiser going on for trying to sponsor the disability youth to have a fun day at Six Flags. We're looking for donations. I can drop the link into the chat. Independence Now does have it on their website as well. The sponsorship would include the entry fee, the lunch, and then a goodie bag. So we would really like to have the disability youth be able to do at least one event this year in person. And so we're hopefully going to get all of the funds before August 26th. So we need to get that in soon. So that anybody's help would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. Other announcements? Or, do you want to talk about what we're watching on Netflix? Or otherwise, we'll just end early. No. Okay. Well, next week we have we're going to be talking about parenting while disabled. We have the Disabled Parenting Project on Dr. Kara Ayers, and we're also going to be having a panel of some Maryland parents, disabled parents, talk about what it's like. So. And hopefully for those of you who want to be parents or are parents, you'll be able to join us. Maybe there'll be some resources that might benefit you. Oh, I just got a question that came in, and maybe Joe or Deanna, this would be, okay.
Off the top of my head.
So the question is there a seated volleyball league in Maryland?
That's I honestly don't know the answer. I do know there is a men's and women's seated volleyball team which is competing in the Paralympics. I I do not know, but if I'd like to find that out for, if I could get your name from the chat, I'll be happy to research that. I'll try to find that out.
Yeah, so Sammy, if you wanted to message, or you could message me if you wanted, just message me your email address, and I will get that for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because that is a Paralympic sport for sure, and US is quite good at that also. It's one of our, probably will medal, but I'll find out about Maryland. Yes.
So it looks like Kennedy Krieger does it. I just did just a quick Google.
Great. Okay.
There might be an age limit on that, but it does exist. Not that far.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Thank
Great.
you, Deanna.
No
and
problem.
someone had mentioned that MedStar NRH has a variety of adaptive sports and recreation for those who are closer to DC.
Yeah, there we go. Sit volleyball. I see it here.
Yeah, and then Cheryl, it says Cheryl Gottlieb. It's just for people in wheelchairs. There are people there. Therefore, people. Maybe I'm going to try to put this together. Is it just for people in wheelchairs, or is there a place for people who are blind can join? Oh, maybe that's MedStar. Does anyone know if MedStar NRH is just for people in wheelchairs?
I don't know.
Yeah, I am not sure.
That's definitely for folks that are wheelchair users at MedStar.
There we go.
Okay, so not for blind individuals, but wheelchair users.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that came. Okay. All right.
I will mention one thing for the question. There is an active organization of United States Association of Blind Athletes. It does have a chapter here in Washington, D.C. That's a pretty active chapter. They do things. I know they sponsor some rowing. They do some tandem cycling. I don't know about sports beyond that, but they are pretty active. And the headquarters for USABA is in Colorado Springs. But that's one of the national governing bodies.
And there is a World Blind Soccer League as well, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
And the exciting thing, that's a great question. So, Mike, many of these countries have been playing blind soccer for quite a long time. This will be the first Paralympics that we're going to have. It's 5-on-5. We are going to have a blind soccer United States team, which is pretty cool. Because you're right, it's one, they call it the world sport, and it's, for a lot of reasons, but you're right, there is.
Yeah. I will say that one of the devices that we've worked on trying to invent here at the Image Center for a while now, and are close, but not close enough yet, is game balls that are audible, and that weigh exactly the same amount, and they weigh the same as a regular ball, et cetera. The struggle we're having is that the electronic device that you put in it keeps breaking, because it's a huge amount of pressure that these balls get put under. But we're hopeful that we're going to be able to work with some folks who really understand pressure dynamics and miniaturization, because blind people, I'm just a simple guy. I just like to shoot hoops. But what I can't do is find the ball after it gets away from me, because the ball just rolls away. There are some special game balls for blind people. Unfortunately, they all change the way the ball bounces, the rolling characteristics. They put beads in them, et cetera. They're all different. So what we want is a ball that's exactly like the one your neighbor has down the street. The only difference is it makes noise.
Yeah, I'll be real curious the ball that they use in the Paralympics, because you're right, Mike. That's exactly right. Getting it as close as you can to, what the soccer ball that you would be playing with is the challenge in most cases.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It's my goal before I die is to have that ball. Well, I can still play with it.
Yeah, I like it. All right. See if I can help you with that goal.
Yeah. I'll send you some of our specs on it.
Yeah. So as soon as everybody made it through the fire drill? Yes.
Well, yeah, and then they tried to start another one, but we're ignoring that one. So if we
Okay.
suddenly just burst into flames, we'll let you know. But
Oh, gosh, yeah.
yeah, I think we're fine.
Having
Any other
Mike,
questions?
Mike,
Yeah.
I would say you need to take these fires seriously. Having survived the fire at ARI in the summer of 2019, this is no laughing matter.
Yeah, no, we went out. I think the second one was just an oops. They only ran it for about 10 seconds. And then I think somebody went, oh, wait a minute. Oh, I pushed the wrong
It's
button.
wrong.
Yeah.
Well, we already did announcements and we talked about
Oh.
next week's session.
Okay.
So, yeah, and then some more questions came in, so we answered those. So if there's no more questions and no one has any last minute announcements, I think we can wrap it up.
As always, thank you all very much for attending. We're going to do it again next Monday because that's not Labor Day. No, we got a couple weeks before Labor Day. So next Monday is on parenting as a person with a disability. So if you ever had curiosity about that, wondered how to meet those challenges, come and hear from parents with disabilities and how they did it and what they advise, etc.
Great.
Anything else for the good of the order? If not, I want to thank Joe very much and Leanne, sorry.
Deanna,
Sorry. Joe and Deanna, I want to thank you both very much for taking the time to come here today and talk to us about this. It's been very interesting.
Oh, my pleasure.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you guys having me on. This is something I absolutely love is adaptive fitness, and I'm glad I get to talk about it.
All right. And if UnderArmor wants to sponsor our Audible Ball project, then we should talk to
I
them.
will pass it up the chain.
There we go.
Okay. Thank you all very much and have a great time this week. We'll see you all next Monday at 2:00 for the IM
Great.
broadcast.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks,
bye
everyone.
everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.